Okay, well, I see that it is 7 o'clock, so we'll start our program tonight. So officially, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this first event in our fall series of Green in the City, a program in partnership with the City of London, London Environmental Network, and London Public Library. Please use the chat at the bottom if you need to ask any questions or reach us with any trouble you're having with seeing or hearing our webinar tonight. So my name is Joanna Kerr. I'm a librarian with the Public Library, speaking to you from our beautiful downtown location. And we would like to start this evening by acknowledging that we are speaking to you from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, Munapayak, and Neutral peoples. The First Nation communities in this region include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We acknowledge historical and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we are grateful for the opportunity to live and to gather here. We thank the generations of peoples who have taken care of this land. Together and going forward, may we all recognize our own responsibility in relation to ongoing injustices and the stewardship of this land. We invite you to read the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action and to reflect on your own acts of allyship with and actions to support Indigenous communities. The link to these calls to action is being shared in the chat, which you can link to. Acts to raise awareness and take action could also include reading books by Indigenous authors or connecting with local Indigenous serving organizations. Thank you for reflecting on this acknowledgement and invitation to personal action. And now I'll turn things over to Deepika.
Thanks, Joanna. So here is the agenda for the evening. Our first presenter will be Reyes, horticulture specialist at the London Food Bank. Then we will hear from Jessica Cordes, chair of the Middlesex London Food Policy Council. Afterwards, we will hear from Samantha Whiteeye, entrepreneur and public speaker of Shui Shupikal Enterprises. And finally, we will hear from Aaron Martin from the Western Fair District and the Wormery. Unfortunately, Dan Lismore will not be joining us tonight due to last minute conflict, but we will still hear from Aaron about the Wormery and Western Fair District, so that will be great. After all speakers have presented, we will wrap up the evening with a 20-minute Q&A period, so remember to submit your questions in the box below. So before we begin, I just wanted to mention that we are running a contest for Green in the City for the first time ever this year. So to enter, all you need to do is attend at least one Green in the City session, pick an environmental action that you learned in the session, and post a photo or a video of you doing the action on social media with the hashtag #WhatMakesAGreenCity. And you have a chance to win one of 5 amazing prizes at the end of the series, so be sure to enter. The deadline to enter is November 26th, and you can find the full details on our website. So I'm going to pass it over to the speakers in just a second, but before that, I want to remind everyone to submit your questions to the Q&A box at the bottom and specify which speaker you're directing it to, and they will be asked during the Q&A session at the end. I also just want to say, please be respectful at all times, especially when using the Q&A box and the chat. Please keep it a fun, welcoming, and inclusive environment for everyone. So I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen and I will introduce our first speaker for the night, Luis Reyes. So Luis is an agronomist that arrived in Canada from Chile a decade ago to work in growing food in greenhouses in Newfoundland. So 3 years ago, he came to London to pursue further opportunities in agriculture. And Luis has been helping with the London Food Bank for a year, helping to set up, operate, and maintain the food bank's greenhouse. And with that, I'll pass it over to Luis.
Thank you very much. And yes, that's pretty much what we're doing here. And that's pretty much my background. Yes, I came from Chile, worked 5 years in Newfoundland with my partner. moved to London, and I started to look for something to do in the urban agriculture part. So I reached out to the different groups in London to see what's going on in the urban agriculture one. And I heard from some of the groups that the London Food Bank was projecting to build a greenhouse that was just before the COVID really hit last year. And we approached them, we saw their project, and it was like they was just ready to start. And they were needing a person to do the managing of the operation, and I happily volunteered to help them running the greenhouse. So what we have here just behind the food bank in Leathermore Street is a 30 by 70 wide and 15 feet high greenhouse that is running right now with 2 heaters to run during the winter. We have 3 big gavita lights to do our growing or supplemental lights with the big lamps, and we're going to supplement the lights with the ones that you see behind me. We don't use the soil of the greenhouse really. We have these benches that we put inside the greenhouse, and we put grow bags, and we buy our soil. That's because the area that we are right here on top of it used to be a lime field. It used to be full of pollutant. So it's not the best place to do agriculture in the soil. That's why we went into soil bags, and we put our fertilizers through our irrigation system. Right now we're preparing to do our growing for the winter. So right now at the greenhouse, right here, right now, we're growing lettuces, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, coriander, sage, lemon balm, basil, and we have different varieties of each. So what we do here really is when one plant really goes depleted, that's like probably for a lettuce, after 3 or 4 harvests, maybe we harvest 4 or 3 times the same lettuce to get their leaf. And then we switch to another kind of family of plants like a tomato. So our idea is to switch between a fruiting plant, then we put a rooting plant, then we grow a leaf plant. So we don't have to throw all of the soil away, because we're also doing we do use whatever green material that we produce in the greenhouse, we put it back into a soil container, and in that soil container we put worms, and we do worm castings, and later we put those worm castings with a bubbler. We run water and air through those worm castings, and we put it back into the irrigation system. So we're using the plants, we put we put the worms, we use the same material again, and we put it back into the same system, and we're recirculating all the system again. So the other idea that we have here is to do it like year long. So in the greenhouse, we have 2 big heaters that can keep the greenhouse of 20 degrees or 25 Celsius during the winter. And we're talking about in November, December, January, and February, to do maybe not tomatoes per se, but we're going to try the tomatoes. But of course, we're going to do all of the leaf, kale, some of the brassicas, lettuces, and all of the greens. So the idea of the food bank was to put a greenhouse to give the clients super nutrition, like super fast, like not coming far away, just right in the city. And also to see what is the future going to be about the urban agriculture. So for that, we also, as the city, what do we need to do a greenhouse like that in the city? And we work with John Fleming, the X80 planner, to do a little bit of change in the city planning, like how we can put a greenhouse that is not connected to the, like with a soil foundation. So we can just put it like anybody can do it, like in a parking lot. And that's the kind of change that this greenhouse right now in London is bringing to, like, not just to grow a little bit of food, but also kind of make urban agriculture available to everybody, like even in the bylaw part. Like that's what we're aiming to right now. And I think that's my presentation for right now. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Luis. It's great hearing just all about like what the London Food Bank is doing. So I'm really happy that you were able to speak today. So I will introduce our next speaker, Jessica Cortez. So Jessica has served on the Middlesex London Food Policy Council since January 2020 and is currently the acting chair. She has been involved in other community-led initiatives like Friends of Urban Agriculture London and Pollinator Pathways Project. So as the Sustainability Engagement Coordinator at Western, she is passionate about community creativity and drive to build a sustainable future and strengthen the local food system. So I'll pass it over to Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deepika. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here. I just want to give everyone a heads up that unfortunately I had a little bit of a technical snag here with my slides. So Deepika is going to share the slides for me. So I'll just be saying next. So in case that's a little bit distracting, just wanted to let you all know. So thanks for that introduction, Deepika. Like she said, my name is Jessica Cortez, and I'm the chair of the Middlesex London Food Policy Council. So I've been involved for the last couple of years. I'm really passionate about being involved in community initiatives and have done some work with Friends of Urban Agriculture London and Pollinator Pathways in the past. And then in my day job at work, I work at Western University as the Sustainability Engagement Coordinator. So tonight I'm going to be chatting with you about the Food Policy Council and what we do with the local food system. So our vision is that Middlesex London community sustains a healthy, safe, equitable, and ecologically responsible local food system that nourishes all residents and is economically viable. I'm going to chat about what that looks like. Next slide, please. So who is the Food Policy Council? We're quite a large organization. We're almost fully volunteer run. So we have 18 voting members that represent these different areas of the food system. So we have city staff and city councillor, as well as county staff and county councillor to represent both London and the Middlesex region. Aside from our voting members, we're also made up of volunteers who contribute to our social media, our storytelling, or certain projects. And as an organization, we fall under the umbrella of the London Food Bank, who's our trustee, as well with support from the Middlesex London Health Unit, who provides support from staff for a part-time position. And these two people, our trustee and staff coordinator, sit on our executive, but are non-voting members. Next slide. So what is a food system? What are we talking about with that? Well, the food system intersects with society, with the environment, with the economy in numerous types of ways. And then in addition to the system itself, we also all interact with the food system in our own intersectional ways from our own backgrounds, beliefs, experiences. So it really is a complex interrelated system that starts with the pre-production stage, including inputs, ideologies, practices, and then there's the farming and indigenous ways of harvest, growing the food and producing the food, as well the supply chain. So that's everything that's involved from getting the food from production to the consumers themselves, and the consumption aspect, which is large in itself and includes some of our own conceptions of food, how we relate to food, and our relationships to what we eat and where we get it from. Sorry. So then, of course, at the bottom of this graphic here too, with the waste management and reduction, waste is a huge part of the food system. That's something that occurs at every stage, though it is more prevalent at some stages than others. So when food is wasted, all the resources that are wasted go with it. And it really is a massive problem in Canada, with nearly $31 billion of food being wasted each year. So that's an indication that there are gaps in the food system and that there are parts of it that are broken when food that is edible and fresh goes to waste for a variety of reasons. There are a lot of great local organizations that are doing work in that area in our local food system. So you might know the London Food Coalition, which saves food that would be going to waste from grocery stores and redistributes it to community organizations. But you can also think about food waste in your own individual households, and food that spoils in the fridge, or leftovers that don't get eaten. Those are all edible pieces that are really important to consider. Now, urban agriculture fits into the food system. It's a really important piece of it because it can help to shorten that supply chain by bringing the food production to the local community, and at the same time helps to build food literacy, so people's understanding of food, and strengthening our community ties and resiliency. Next slide. The community food assessment is a really important piece of what the Food Policy Council works on. So I'm going to say it a couple more times: community food assessment. And this is what initiated the development of the Food Policy Council back in 2016. We did the first community food assessment back then, and the resounding recommendation out of that assessment was to create the Food Policy Council. So this document really has been guiding our work for the first few years of our inception. But in the last couple of years, there have been some gaps in the food system, or changes to the food system with the pandemic, as well as changes in climate change. And so we're currently now working to redo the assessment, fill in some of those gaps, and look at some other areas. So those bullet points on the right-hand side are what were covered in the first assessment, looking at things like our local population, food production, food access, etc. And these green points on the left are what the gaps that we're looking to fill with the new food assessment that we're currently taking underway. So we want to be having a good understanding of Indigenous food sovereignty and issues in that component of the food system. How does climate change interact with the food system, rural and urban agriculture, the landscape of what's going on, and the rest. Next slide. We also get involved with the community. So in the community, we've done a couple of public forum events. We try to recognize local food champions. We have a food system champion program that's underway. We have some community partnerships and take part in awareness, education, and advocacy. So over the summer, we held 2 community forums on local food security. So this one on the right, it was about finding room to grow, talking about how the loss of farmland impacts our local food system. Next slide. And local food security part 2, really specific to what we're talking about tonight, was about making urban agriculture easier, and exactly what Louise was just chatting about in terms of bylaw changes to rules around greenhouses. There's a report from the city making urban agriculture easier with some bylaw recommendations on how changes can be made so that more people are aware of urban agriculture rules, how they can do it, and how it can become easier for all residents. So we collected some public feedback and provided that to the city to go towards their report. Next slide. Like I mentioned, we also recognize local food champions. So we are reigniting our food system champion program, which began a couple of years ago. And we're currently in the process of reviewing nominations. And within the next month or so, you should be seeing some awards announced. So we love to be able to recognize the incredible work that's happening for the food system all across the city and county. And we're also partnered with the Grove, where together we work together on food literacy initiatives, education, raising awareness, and building community around the local food system. Next slide. So you can get involved with us. We would love anybody to join the Middlesex Food Policy Council as a member. We'll be recruiting for members in the next month or two. So keep an eye out for that if you'd like to get involved in the board. If you'd like a more laid back position, not so, that could be not tied to a certain time length or just tied to a certain project, you're more than welcome to volunteer with us. We're always looking for people to help with community storytelling, social media, or if there's a certain project that you're interested in working on. Watch out for our events. We're hoping to hold more public forums like the ones in the summer, and keep an eye on our social media and help to advocate for local food issues. Next slide. That's it. Thank you so much. Follow us on social media, check out our website, or send us an email. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jessica. So I will be introducing our third speaker, Samantha White-Eye. So Samantha is an emerging leader from Delaware Nation of the Thames. She's very passionate and dedicated to her work within London, Ontario, and the Indigenous community she actively serves. Samantha is very knowledgeable and connected to her Lenape culture as she continuously weaves the medicine and teachings into her work and daily lifestyle effortlessly. She's also passionate about ancestral seed sovereignty and hopes it will be able to build bridges back to identity for her people. And with that, I'll pass it over to you, Sam.
Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here, and I will just jump into my presentation. Oh, I gotta screen share just 1 second here. Okay. Okay, so. Okay, so I wanted to introduce my garden in the language Lumikon Waxkanim, or growing seeds. And I just wanted to go through a story sharing on the starting of this ancestral and organic seed garden in my backyard, which is in partnership with the London Environmental Network. But first, Kingwanao Lomwa Ani Skuli. Ni Shinzi Howi Shopakal, ni Nonjai Lapawi Lakawi, ni Nangwamawak, the Kwa ni Ndlanapawi. So, hello, my name is Sam White-Eye. My name translates to ancient or old moccasin. I am from Lapawi Lakawi, and I belong to the Turtle clan of the Lenape. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how my ancestral garden started. It started from these 3 seeds. I got these seeds from one of my Shawnee mentors in the States, and he introduced me to the idea of food sovereignty and what it would mean, what it means today, and has always meant to Indigenous folks in stewarding and caretaking of our ancestral seeds. And he talked to me a little bit about how colonization, especially around food sovereignty and seed sovereignty, has changed our relationships with our own seeds. And then he gave me these 3 seeds from his garden. And this was about 5 years ago now. And I haven't had space to plant these seeds, but I've held on to them safely for that amount of time. And when I was cultural teacher for the Muncie Delaware Nation, I did a chapter on food sovereignty and seed sovereignty. And I told them about these 3 beans that I had, and how when I was able to, I was going to grow them and be able to build seed stock for both nations as well as myself, and how this could lead back to identity for our people. And folks in the community were really excited. They wanted an opportunity because it's tangible. A garden is more tangible around identity than some of the other aspects of our specific culture. And so it was really important for me to start this journey and see how I could really help the people from both nations, Moraviantown and the Muncie Delaware Nation, bridge those gaps back to identity. Because along with our seeds, there's the responsibility of caretaking, as well as, songs related to seeds, ceremonies related to seeds, the language that we would have used when referring to certain seeds. It talks about those relationships to the people and the land and our relationship to everything. And so it was a really big, it was a really important aspect that I try and start this, because I don't think that I couldn't find anybody else nearby in this territory that was doing this for those nations. So when I moved into this new plot of land with a garden, a backyard, a beautiful backyard, and my partner, we teamed up because he's been into gardening for a long time. His name is Brian. And he had a garden, but it was a small garden and just in a few planters here and there. And when we talked about our mutual passion about gardening, and I brought up the idea of, my aspect of ancestral seed gardening, and he's really into organic gardening, we kind of teamed up and created a garden that would be half of my seeds and my passions and half of his. And so that's kind of how the garden started. We thought we could expand it and make it this beautiful thing. And so I'm just kind of gonna go through the progression of how this looked like. And I will admit now, I did not get photos towards the end because weeding and caretaking of this garden got so overwhelming. That's for the end though. So you'll see progressions, and then you can just imagine all of these plants in full flourish. So yes, this is one of the cool garden pics we took when someone from community came to visit our garden in the very initial stages. This was our backyard when we kind of started. It's a mess and there's nothing really here, but we started figuring out how to plant it, and we thought we could, do 4 rows with mulch in between. And Len helped us with the soil and mulch, and it was a huge help. And we wanted to do a no-till garden to keep the nutrients that were already in the ground there. That was really important for Brian to try this year. So we did that. So I had to take this hatch thing and brush back all of the grass. It was very manual labor, but we did it and I'm proud. And we used the cardboard to help also to kill any of the weeds that might come up, to kind of help clear some of the land a little bit. So we did that. So there's that. And then there it is, finished. And then afterwards, we figured, because some of these seeds are so delicate, especially from the ancestral side, and we have waboos or rabbits everywhere in the neighborhood, and other creatures that like to dig, like skunks, we figured if we just put a little chicken wire in, that it would keep some of those creatures out, so that it would give our seeds a fighting chance outside. And then I'll just go back, and then that's kind of the finished fence there that we kind of handmade with recycled materials around Brian's shop. So that's great. And so last year also, what was a big help was last year Brian had a compost bin. And so this year we used the compost as well for other bins and for other bins of plants, as well as in the main garden. So that was great. I learned a lot about compost this year. There's worms in there and all kinds of good stuff. And this year at the end of the harvesting thing, we filled it again. So we'll have at least one to go around next year. But we learned that one little compost bin is not enough for the garden that we have, but it's okay. We're getting there. Okay, so for the ancestral garden side of things, there was really important seeds that I worked super hard at being able to reclaim and bring back into this territory specific to my nation. And I'm really proud of that work, and that I was able to try growing them this year. There was a lot of beans that folks handed to me that I couldn't plant this year because I was worried about cross-pollination, as well as different varieties of corns that I was also gifted. But so I picked one kind of each to try this year. So we planted blue corn, Muncie black beans, which are both specific to my nation, Algonquin winter squash, Georgia rattlesnake watermelon, tobacco that would be used for more ceremonial tobacco, not the cigarette smoking tobacco, hairy mountain mint, which is not from this territory, but it is from my homelands of New York City, New York. And so I was really proud last year to get a plant that was brought up to Moraviantown by my ancestors. There's only 2 batches, I think, in Moraviantown, and somebody there got the seeds, and they gave me the seeds. And so I grew them last year, and this year the mother plant kind of sprouted. I got more seeds. And so mountain mint is well on its way to being brought back for folks in this area, in their gardens, not out in the wild, because it's not originally not from here. So being mindful of that. Sage and sweetgrass. And then on the organic side, we planted a bunch. I'm not going to go through the whole list. You can just take a peek. And then I'm going to just go to this little video here. So for some of the plants that we did, Brian suggested that we start some of them early. And so we planted them in these fabric pots under a heat lamp in this like little solar shed, I guess you would call it, inside in our basement, random, but yes. And this is how we started a lot of our plants. We couldn't start everything this way, but we started some, and I learned a lot. So one thing I learned was for the light cycles, we grew most of our vegetables in vegetative state and then had to wean them off to a more natural sunlight state when we move them outside. So there was like my partner always calls it is sunlight training. But this is the initial stages, and I'll just kind of go through the video. There's a lot of plants in that tray. And Brian really, one of his strong points is knowing a lot of the technical knowledge, I guess, on this part of the stage. And so he did a lot of work on planting those seedlings, caretaking those seedlings, teaching me along the way, especially about pH and balancing water and how that works. So it was a big learning curve for me, but we did it. And then this was part of the second stage where we moved them out of the lights and almost to outside. So it's still really early yet in the growing season when I took this. And so they're getting used to more natural light cycles instead of the artificial, because you can't just take them apparently from the artificial to outside. You'll shock them really bad. So that's kind of our process on going through that. And then, so for the garden, for the ancestral part of the garden, these are some initial photos I took. And so I tried this year the Three Sisters method of planting my blue corn, my Muncie black beans, and the Algonquin squash. And Brian kind of explained the technical side of the benefits that these three plants have in relation to each other, something that Indigenous folks have always understood. But I can kind of go through it quick here that, you know, the corn grows really tall. The pole beans usually will grow up the corn, which they did. It was awesome to see. And the squash will kind of cover the ground and help keep the weeds out. And they have a relationship below ground as well, as, you know, one plant takes this, the other plant gives some of the nutrients back, and they share a really good relationship in the soil. And so I tried it this year for the first time ever, and it was pretty successful. The beans kind of got wild. I'm just going to say that. So that was a learning curve, but they were abundant. So these are just some photos. So this is kind of our line of corn and line of beans. And these are just going to be going through photos. So I'll just kind of go quick. They're getting a little bit bigger. Oh, I do want to say, so we planted 3 corn in 1 pod, and we had 5 kind of pods. The reason why, and I'm so glad I did it, whatever corn kind of came out the strongest, we picked the other 2. So that we got the best kind of genetic start to the corn that we would be growing. And I did that for the beans and the squash, but I had such a small amount of Algonquin squash that I think I only planted 1 each, because I think I only got 10 seeds in total for that one. I wasn't given a lot. So everything else, so the beans got 3, the corn got 3, and then Algonquin squash got 1. As you can see, they're getting bigger. We planted strawberries because strawberries are women's medicine. They hold a lot of significance for us as women and also in our ceremonies. So just going to go through kind of what we planted. There is the hairy mountain mint. And we put this year in like it's not in the garden, it's off to the side in one of these containers, and it thrived. So this was one of the plants that we grew last year. And we took it out of its kind of winter station and put it in this planter, and it thrived in there. So it's loving it. These are tobacco. This is a tobacco plant. Brian has a really big thing with onions. So we planted onions in these little plant bags because we didn't have enough room in the main garden, and they thrived. So that's great. You can plant onions in these and it'll work. Those are the banana peppers, I believe. That is squash. These are just more or less really pretty pictures. Those are golden zucchinis when they're growing, and they're pretty cool and delicious. Just another type of mint, the cooking mint, I believe. Those are our California peppers. This is rhubarb. It got really lush in its container. So learning moment that if you do plant rhubarb, try not to put it in a large container because it'll outgrow it. So learning moment. It was good though. Snap peas. Those are tomatoes, so our line of tomatoes. I believe those are more onions. Oh, so those are the golden zucchinis when they are fully grown, and we planted 5 golden zucchinis. Too many golden zucchinis because we must have got like 10 off each plant. We had so many golden zucchinis. We had to start giving it away to the community, like to the folks in the community in our neighborhood, because we had too many. So we went a little overzealous on planting this year. These are the Muncie black beans when they are finished and ready to be taken for seed stock. And then I'll just go through quick on learning moments. So learning moments for us would obviously be mold and disease. Our golden zucchinis got too moist in the evening when we watered. So we learned that we have to water in the morning. Frost, we transplanted our tomatoes out too early one time and lost all of them. We had to replant our tomatoes outside starting again. Also spacing, we planted our tomatoes too close. Blackbirds love blue corn. They plucked almost all the seedlings out. Luckily, I got 1 each, so I had 5 stalks. But the other ones, they were not nice to. my blue corn actually didn't make it. The moisture from the rains at the end of, almost at the end of the season, even though I was shaking the stalks, it's a learning thing. I don't know what happened, but it got too wet and the moisture killed the stalks. And then the bugs came. So I actually
sorry, Sam. Sorry. We kind of went over time, but for the Q&A session, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box and we'll be sure to answer them. But all of that sounded really interesting. It was really great hearing more about the project. And yeah, we'll see in the Q&A any more questions coming up. And I will pass it off to our last speaker, Aaron Martin. So Aaron grew up with an agriculture background, with his family having a dairy operation. After his time abroad, he returned to Canada to study agriculture at the University of Guelph Ridgetown campus. Following graduation, he worked as an agriculture consultant and orchid manager before joining the Western Fair Association. So with that, I'll pass it off to Aaron to begin his presentation.
Thank you very much. I'll just bring up my presentation here. There we go. Everyone can see that? So, as you're saying, I work for the Western Fair District, and I am the Grove's Agri-Food Supervisor of Development and Operations. So the Grove, for those that you don't know, is basically an agri-food incubator, specifically for agri-food in southwestern Ontario. We're looking to get businesses from their basements, from their garages that are small scale to get up to medium scale, and then hopefully within 5 to 7 years, make them big enough to go out. On top of this, we're working on education for the local public and a whole plethora of other things, which I'll show you just ahead. So a bit about me, as said before, I'm the Agri-Food Supervisor for Development and Operations. I have a dairy background and I worked as an ag consultant with organic farmers a lot. I studied at the University of Guelph in Ridgetown, and I also lived in Australia and New Zealand, working in their ag industry. And if you ever get the chance to go down and see other industries, see other ways people do things in other countries, it's fantastic. It's a real eye-opener, and I think we can learn from each and every person and country. If anyone also has anything they'd like to contact me with, feel free to reach out to me at my email. It's just there at the bottom, or even on here. So our future initiatives for 2022 that we're looking up for urban agriculture are some of the following. So we have an agriplex garden that we're looking to possibly do on the south end, and we're looking to partner there with Tight Diabetes, which is a non-for-profit organization that specializes in helping individuals make necessary life changes with diabetes to help them with that. And they're specifically looking at minorities that are affected immensely by this as well. The next thing that we're going to look, and I'll go a bit more deeper into this as well, is we have the Knowing Growing Garden with Libro. We have a new greenhouse with growing chefs that's going up, and we have an infield victory garden that we're looking to do with Master Gardeners of Forest City, London. And another big project which involves the wormery is the community compost drop-off for the Old East Village. So looking a bit deeper into this, each one, here we have the Type Diabetes. I don't want to mispronounce their name there. So to the south end of the agriplex, we have a bit of vacant land there that they were looking to possibly grow vegetables and other things that they can make into snacks that they could use for helping people to change their lifestyles from, sugary processed foods into something that's more wholesome and better for managing diabetes. So they're looking to hopefully plant this land, look after it, and take anything that they can't use for people with diabetes to donate that to local charities as well, which is fantastic. So the next thing we have here is our Knowing and Growing Garden, which was sponsored by Libro, and I have a small video we can play here. It just kind of gives a quick walkthrough and shows it off a wee bit. It's only about 3 minutes, and hopefully it plays all right for us. And there's Dan Lismore.
I don't know if the video is playing.
It's not working?
Yeah, it's just showing the slide.
Here, I will do this then, just to keep things simple. If anyone wants to look at that on their own time to go through the Knowing and Growing Garden, I'll give a brief description now, but they can look on that later on. So the Knowing and Growing Garden is essentially an urban garden that we put together, and we're using it as an education focus. So when people come to the Grove or the Agriplex, we can take them there. Growing Chefs has a lot of kids camps that come through, and we bring them through and we can show them naturalized gardens, commercial size gardens, how things grow, how to prep. And in the future, we're looking to do a lot of social content to show people how to prep gardens for planting and how to take care of them. And then at the end of the season, how to basically clean them up, make sure they're prepped and good to go for the next year. It's a really great thing. And I think education like this, especially at a young age for kids, is really important. And the next, we have a new greenhouse that's going up. I do believe they've just put up the plastic in the last couple of days. This is in works with Growing Chefs, as I mentioned before, who do a lot of ag education and cooking education for younger children. So in here, they're hopefully going to be doing seedlings and growing things out so they can cook and show kids how to cook with them. I think it's a really great thing that we have, and it's great that it's going to be on the property. It's in the infield. If anyone's been to the Western Fair and been to the racetrack, just in the center there. If you'd ever like to come see it, please drop us a line and we'd love to show it off to you too. So, and another initiative that we're looking to do in the infield there at the racetrack is Victory Gardens. So this is looking back kind of at our past history during the wars to make up for rations and lower calories. The government encouraged people to have their own gardens. They called them Victory Gardens in their backyards to make up for possible calories lost during the war. This is something we want to kind of do to honor those that fought for what we had and those that lost their lives, and also to create an educational piece to show that. We're looking to work with the Master Gardeners of Forest City, London to complete this, and also with our local militias here as well, as they're a part of our history here. And actually the infield itself used to be a military training grounds as well. So last, we have the community drop-off for Old East Village. So our plan going forward is hopefully to create a drop-off area so that people can bring their compost or green waste and drop it off at the fair. We can process it, we can put it into the wormery and basically turn it into compost and worm castings. This can be brought back out into the community or sold off to use for nonprofit and other operations and stuff like that to continue creating more education to the public. So this will also help with us expanding a bit on the wormery. For those of you who don't know much about the wormery, I would highly advise you to go check out our website. We have some great videos on there that you can learn more about it. We have tons of castings for sale as well there. And we're hoping in the near future to be able to sell red wigglers as we get our breeding stock up of them. So with this will also help with the content that we need to increase basically our worm size because we won't have enough feed otherwise. And this is a great way to keep stuff out of the landfill, which is something we absolutely want to do, especially when we can turn it into something that is worthwhile to go back into the environment. And that was the majority of my project. We do work a lot with the Middlesex London Food Policy Council. They're going to be helping us a lot going forward in creating a lot of educational content. So if you want to volunteer and work with me or Dan, please hit them up and join up with them. And I look forward to hearing what other people have to say. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Erin. Thank you to all the speakers. I'm really sorry for cutting you off, Sam. But I was wondering if you are able to finish your presentation in the next 5 minutes. We could do that if you would like.
Sure. I just had a few more notes about learnings, so I guess I can just kind of finish that off. I didn't realize it was over 10 minutes, so I do apologize, folks. So last learnings, Japanese beetles love ancestral beans. They went to town on these Muncie black beans, and I really didn't know what to expect when planting these beans or any of these ancestral seeds, because they've not been in this territory that I'm aware of. There is other knowledgeable Indigenous seed keepers that I do know in my circles, but I haven't had a chance yet to ask them, you know, and what's their seed stock. So it was a learning curve on some of these things for us, especially on a garden this size with just the two of us. We did learn about potatoes and moisture again, that if the water sits in the earth, the potatoes don't do well. So our potatoes didn't do well because of the moisture in the earth. It didn't drain properly. And planting for your capacity, the big one. We planted too much too fast. So next year we're going to tone it down a little bit, space things out a little bit, and understand what we can do in our capacity if it's just going to be us two. Eventually, I have hopes for being able to give, probably by the end of next growing season, some of my seed stock away to community members from my Indigenous community, so Moravian Town and Muncie, and see if they can start growing as well. But I'm hoping to really do a larger rematriation of seeds in about 4 to 5 years, when I have lots of stock to give all community members, with a free workshop on the learnings and the journey that I would have taken with this project. So it's not just a 1-year thing, it's going to be continuous until I can host these free workshops for Indigenous folks. So that's the end goal of my garden. And so that is everything. Anishik.
Thanks, Sam. So yeah, now we're going to go into the Q&A session. We have some questions already. So the first question is for Luis. Can you speak a bit more about expanding the greenhouse concept? So yeah, if you could answer that.
Unmute, start video. Okay, there I am. Oh, I look so pink. So yes, the food bank itself is like getting funding to bring more greenhouses around the city. So right now, what we learned, like right off the bat, was like this greenhouse is too big. So for us to have this greenhouse behind the food bank in the middle of the city is really a tricky part for the city to bring a permit in to be able to follow all of the rules of the bylaws in the city. So right now we have a temporary permit for running this greenhouse right now. So what we learned is you have to have like a smaller greenhouse, and if you put it in the city in a private land that is not owned by the city, so you have to be your own landlord, you can put a greenhouse right there. No question asked really if it's a small one that is not from nature to make. And we're challenging the city to see how much of them we can put. So right now the food bank has already 15 small greenhouses in the city, working with the faith communities. So different church have taken us on that plan. So the greenhouse give them the small greenhouse package, like a small greenhouse in a box. They put it together in the land of the church. They produce the food, and the food is distributed either through the food bank or through their own venues at the church. So that's the whole idea. So you get in that position a free greenhouse if you're able to distribute it into the city of London to the public in the city of London. And to see if the bylaws is really up to the challenge, we tried that, and that's no problem. The city is completely aware that yes, we can put, and that's how. Why do you see? You go around and you see behind the church the small greenhouses. Those are the ones from the food bank too. So yeah, that's the really the plan to see more urban growing. And why greenhouses is the easiest things to do. So there is a lot of other stuff, other new technologies to grow inside the city that we are aware of, but we went for the greenhouse first because it was the oldest one, the most tested one, the easiest one, and the one that really don't get people too crazy about, but just enough to see if they have this wanting this idea of growing in the city. So that's pretty much the idea of the food bank about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. So for the next question, Sam and Jessica, would you be able to explain more on what Indigenous food sovereignty means?
I actually would be happy to talk about this because I practice it this year. So from an Indigenous perspective, it talks about, for me on my journey, reclamation of the seeds that we would have stewarded before first contact. Talks about our original food systems and our relationships to those food systems that were interrupted during colonization. It talks about also bringing back old ways of knowledge to create new pathways to better health because of our food systems that we had in place. And not being so dependent on grocery stores or again, even for people with finances, right? Like being able to grow your own gardens and not having to rely so much on food in the grocery stores as well. And then also from a cultural standpoint as well, again, I did touch on, you know, the songs and the language around those foods and those seeds, especially. It was in my nation, you know, each family was responsible for the seed sovereignty for their family. And so those seeds were passed down to one person in each generation and that was interrupted. And so really, again, it goes back to reclamation of all of these practices. So if we want to talk about food sovereignty, it's really rooted in that.
Thank you. Also, Jessica, if you wanted to weigh in on this question as well.
No, I can't vocalize that any better than Sam has. Thank you so much, Sam.
Okay, so the next question is for Erin. So compost drop-off sounds like an awesome idea. When will that be up and running?
Yeah, so we're hoping to do that in the spring, the early spring, if everything goes through. I know we were waiting on a grant to get some of the stuff together so we could process a bit more of this. We might do something a bit smaller scale at the market itself. So this would include having maybe like a 5-gallon pail so people could do their dinner scraps and put that in. And then when they go to the market, if they generally go there a fair bit, they could bring their dinner scraps with them, drop it off before they go in the market, and possibly take an empty pail back with them to go. Kind of have a switch out. That's one thing we were looking as a stopgap to till we get this full project up and going. But we're hoping to have that in early spring. That's hopefully everything goes good, you know, knock on wood. So
great. And then this last question is for Sam. So could you please share more about how you prepared and ate the food that you grew?
Sure. So from the organics, it's pretty simple. We just kind of put them in stews and frozen some of them. But for the ancestral seeds, because they're so new, and it's again about reclaiming the practices again and about food preparation, I'm still learning that part. So I did have a preemptive meeting earlier before the growing season with my mentor regarding the blue corn. And I have to revisit that conversation because my blue corn didn't come through. So that's okay, but I got seed stock for the Muncie black beans. And the mint is really easy. You know, I usually use that for teas. So that one was kind of easy. But for the beans, there's a book from one of my ancestors, and that a fluent speaker as well. She put a book together, a cooking book. And so now that I have some of these other ingredients, even though they're not ancestral, they're organic still, I'm going to take a look at those recipes and see what I can do to make them. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a feast dish and put them out for my ancestors with some of the food that I grew, as well as the organic pieces, and offer them first to the ancestors because those seeds have taken a really long journey to get here today. And it was really important to me to acknowledge that as well. And so I think I will do that. I did buy the book, so I'm going to look through it and see what I can do to prepare some of these dishes. So cross my fingers it goes good.
Thanks. We actually have a couple more questions. So this is for all the speakers. So what is one food that is meaningful to you? So whoever wants to answer first.
I suppose I could go if anyone else wants to. I guess potatoes is kind of a really meaningful food to me. Just from experience-wise, it always brings me right back to being at my grandparents and having mashed potatoes. Big thing to me. It's a comfort food. Also that it's a big staple, I'd say, to the North American and European diet as well, and in a lot of developing countries now. It's one of those things, it's up there with rice, I would say, as an equivalent. It's really important that we have good crops like that basically provide for people and help take out starvation as well.
Does any of the other speakers want to answer the question?
I guess I can kind of go quick. I think for me, because I had some experience growing my own ancestral seeds this year, my favorite out of them, I think, was the Muncie black bean, because one, it is specific to my nation, and two, when I was shucking them and taking off the outer layers, I had this like moment come over me, and it's like kind of like, you know, we always talk about blood memory in our communities of being connected to our ancestors. And as I was doing it, you know, I kind of got that feeling of like, I've done this before, and this was like so familiar, even though I've never done it before. And so I think creating a new connection back to those seeds in a different way really made it stand out for me. And so I think that was a really important moment that I can share.
Jessica and Luis, if either one of you want to answer that.
Sure. It's so hard to choose one food, but I'm going to take a bit of a cop out and say any food that's grown out of the garden holds a lot of meaning to me. Whatever's in season, whatever I'm able to produce on my own backyard and kind of cultivate. And I really try my best throughout the growing season. Like Sam, I have a large backyard garden, and I try not to shop for any foods as I have produce out of the garden. So creating meals around what is in season and what I have been able to grow abundantly is something that's really meaningful. And I'll also say tomatoes are just something that is so homey to me. I have Italian background. My grandparents live in Italy, or great-grandparents, sorry. And so that's just always a reminder of going back home and connecting with my family that way. And it's also been a way to connect with neighbors. Everybody seems to love fresh tomatoes, but not everyone seems to love like Swiss chard or other options.
And Luis, if you want to answer the question, like what's your favorite food? or what's meaningful to you. I think you're on mute.
And here we are. So I was thinking the potatoes at first. We did grow potatoes at the food bank in containers. They were successful. But for me, really, I have a Latin American background. So for me, is the coriander. So the coriander is not something that everybody loves. Like, actually, there is a genetic predisposition. Some people like taste it and it's for them like tasting soap, and that's a genetic issue. So there is a part of the population that is never going to like coriander no matter what. Even if you make it into a nice ceviche, that's the way that I like to do it, or with tomato and a little bit of onion. Oh, and we grow all of those in the greenhouse, and sometimes we just chop it and take it before it gets to the clients, because you have to taste before it goes. So it's in a way or quality control, but we don't hate it. It's a nice thing to do.
Awesome. It was really nice hearing about all those. We have another question for Sam. So, what is the name of the cookbook, and would it be available for us?
I think I'm going to keep that for myself for a little bit longer, just because it's come back to me and it's really new. And I want Indigenous folks to experience it first before I share that out. So I'm going to keep that to myself.
We have another question for Sam. So the Three Sisters planting is such a brilliant growing concept, and it fits so well with the plant-based meals we're trying to eat more of. And they were wondering, do you think this could be done in a greenhouse?
Technical knowledge is Brian's part. I've learned a lot, and it's always going to be I feel like a continuing learning journey. But I don't know. I've never heard of anybody doing it. So I say give it a shot and see what you come up with. It works, and that's great. If it doesn't, then we all learn, right? So try it out.
So I think that's all the questions we received, but thank you so much to all the speakers. This was a really interesting presentation, and I feel like I learned so much from each and every one of you. So thank you so much for attending and speaking tonight. I'm just going to share my screen once again. Okay, so just a reminder that our Green in the City contest is happening, and the deadline to submit your submission is November 26th for a chance to win an awesome prize. So you can find more information on our website. And if you enjoyed this session, remember that we have 5 more workshops that are part of the online Green in the City series. We have 5 more coming up on every Tuesday for the next 5 weeks. Next week's session will focus on how to be a more sustainable consumer. So where we will hear from some wonderful speakers that are leading the way in sustainable consumption and production within London. You can register for our upcoming sessions on our website. And we also have a feedback form for the series, which can be found at the link. We'll also submit that in the chat, but also in the follow-up email that we will send out. So this will be very useful just for knowing how we can improve these events for the future. And it only takes a couple of minutes to complete. So if you have the chance to do it, I highly encourage you to do it. And if you would like to stay up to date with us on upcoming events like this one, volunteer opportunities, and so on, be sure to sign up for our e-newsletter through our website. And once again, we're super grateful to be collaborating with the London Public Library and City of London in organizing these Green in the City sessions. So I really hope you enjoyed today's. And finally, I just want to say thank you to all of our amazing speakers for tonight, our supporters, and thank you to all of you for coming out to learn more about some ways you can get involved and learning about some initiatives on urban agricultural efforts in London. So I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's Green in the City session and look forward to seeing you guys at our next sessions.